Welcome
to the MJ Theory.
You wanna see who's bad?
Watch.
Hello to all my moonwalkers, my moonstalkers, and to just anybody and everybody who decided to join me today. Welcome back to another episode of the MJ Theory. I'm your host, Shae, and I will be your humble guide through this episode of the MJ Theory. Good morning, evening, noon, day, night, whatever time it is that you're watching this right now. I am so glad that you are with me. Now, this episode is very, very, very important, as it is the trial episode, the 2005 trial, the Vindication Day special. Now, I'm going to do things a little bit differently than what you're probably used to. All of the information that I am pulling for this episode is coming from probably what is going to be considered and what should be considered the most important source of information for this topic, and that source is the court transcripts. So everything that I'm telling you, every bit of factual information is coming straight from the courtroom. And I'm going to link the court transcripts below, and I implore you to read them if you haven't already. I remember at the end of my last episode, I advised you guys to read through it, brush up on it. It is very lengthy, but don't let that stop you from reading it. If I can get through it, if I can read it, you can read it too, I swear. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with both Tom Snedden's and Tom Mesereau's opening statements. And when you listen to these, I'm not going to read the statements verbatim, because if I did, we'd be here until next Tuesday. But I bullet pointed the opening statements, and I pulled the most pertinent information from them to share with you guys, and to pay attention to how vastly different the pictures are that are painted, not just about Michael, but about the Arvizos as well, because Tom Snedden is making the Arvizos out to be these, oh, poor me, we're the victims, blah, blah, blah.
Help me, I'm poor.
And making Michael out to be this freaking Dr. Evil, grand conspirator, evil mastermind.
Gentlemen, I have a plan.
Like, okay, relax. It's not happening. And then Tom Mesereau goes into who the Arvizos really are. He ruins the perfect victim image that Tom Snedden painted, which is absolutely amazing. And if you guys read the court transcripts, I mean, if you don't read them for the facts, which is strange, just read it for Tom Mesereau's sassiness. I mean, this man, the mean G, is just on it, man. I mean, there are things that he says throughout the trial that I just double over laughing. So, if you guys read the transcripts, I mean, just know that that is waiting for you. So let's go ahead and get started here with Tom Snedden's opening statement.
I object, Your Honor!
So Snedden pretty much starts his opening statement by saying that everything started with 10-year-old Gavin, because when Gavin was 10 in the year 2000, that was when he was diagnosed. Wow. It was when he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And Gavin lived with his mother, Janet Arvizo, and his father, David, and his older sister, Davelyn, and his younger brother, Star. Now, Gavin's cancer, he goes into Gavin's cancer, again, painting the image of the perfect victims and trying to get the sympathy card. He goes into all the details about Gavin's tumor, saying it was 16 pounds, that it was removed from his abdomen. Abdomen, yeah, I said that right. Abdomen. Confidence. And then lesions were removed from his lungs, his gallbladder was removed, lymph nodes were removed, and one kidney was removed. So basically, he's saying that Gavin is, missing some parts, And then he underwent chemo for a year. He was in and out of hospitals, and he was in and out of his grandparents' house, recuperating from his chemo. And his family was told by doctors that he wasn't going to live very long, and they should probably just start preparing for his funeral arrangements. Now, the Arvizo family was supported emotionally by Jamie Masada, and even, financially. We'll get into that. And Jamie Masada was the founder of the Laugh Factory, and he sponsored camps for summer camps for underprivileged children. And Gavin, Davelin, and Star all participated in this summer program at the Laugh Factory. And Jamie Masada took a liking to Gavin. But that's okay, right? Okay, let's just talk about that for a minute. Tom Sneddon says, oh, Jamie Masada took a liking to Gavin, and they hung out regularly. And it's okay, hold the fuck up. So it's okay for Jamie Masada, but it's not okay for Michael Jackson to hang out regularly with a 13-year-old boy? Is that what you're telling me, Tom Sneddon? Is that what you're saying to my face right now?
You need to shut the fuck up!
Yeah, so everybody can hang out with 13-year-olds except for Michael Jackson. So anyway, Jamie visited Gavin on a regular basis, visited him in the hospitals, this and that, what have you. And since Gavin was most likely going to die from cancer, there were some organizations that wanted to make his wishes come true, hashtag Make-A-Wish Foundation. And his wish was to meet some comedians and celebrities. He wanted to meet Chris Tucker. He wanted to meet Adam Sandler. He wanted to meet Michael Jackson. And mind you, this is the year 2003, if hearing that Gavin wanted to meet Adam Sandler, threw you off for a minute. Remember, this is the year 2003. Adam Sandler was still a hot commodity in 2003. Anyway, so Gavin's wish to meet Michael came true when MJ called Gavin in the hospital recovering from chemo. And for the next several weeks, the two exchanged telephone calls on a regular basis, and sometimes spanning over hours of time. And I'm assuming what Tom Sneddon means by television calls is the dinosaur version of FaceTime, like Skype television calls. So when Gavin was allowed to leave the hospital to return home to recuperate, Michael invited Gavin and his family to Neverland. And please keep in mind, this is Tom Sneddon's version of events. This is the prosecution's version of everything that happened. This is important to remember, okay? So in August of 2000, the Arvizo family were picked up in a limo and driven to Neverland. They stayed for several days in a guest cottage, and the night before their last day at Neverland, Michael pulls Gavin aside and tells him to ask his parents if it's okay for him to sleep in the bedroom with them. Now, Tom Mesereau tried to object to this statement twice, and I'm assuming because it's blatant hearsay, but for whatever reason, Judge Melville decided to overrule it. I'm not sure why, and I think probably because for opening statements, you're not allowed to argue the validity of statements. Opening statements pretty much just go into what's going to be discussed and what's going to be proven. Excuse me, but we'll get into that. So the parents, when Gavin asked if he could sleep in Michael's bedroom under Michael's instruction, the parents said yes. Janet and David said yes, and they allowed Star to join them. And so Star, Michael, and Gavin all slept in the bedroom. But in the bedroom that night are Michael Jackson, Frank Cassio, who also goes by Frank Tyson. And remember when I said that Michael was never alone in a bedroom with kids? Remember in the last episode when I said that Michael always had somebody after the 93 bullshit? Michael always had somebody in the bedroom with kids. Enter Frank Cassio, aka Frank Tyson. So anyway, it's Michael, Frank Tyson, Gavin, and Star, and also Michael's toddler son, Prince. And just side note, I think Paris was probably in the room too. I think Tom Mesereau later on says that Paris was also in the room as well. So anyway, they remain in the downstairs area of Michael's bedroom suite for a few hours and then move up to the top level where Michael's bedroom resides. Once in Michael's bedroom, Frank Tyson, aka Frank Cassio, pulls out a laptop computer and just starts looking up porn.
What?
Because why not? Why not just pull up porn? And then Tom Sneddon says that they looked at it for about 40 minutes of looking up porn with little Prince and Paris chilling in the room, and you got Star and Gavin, just, no better time to look up titties. Okay. Okay, Tom Sneddon, if you say so. And then Tom Sneddon said that when a photo of a woman exposing her breast was displayed on the screen, Michael turned to Prince, who's asleep on the bed, and says, "Prince, you're missing a lot of pussy."
Pussy!
What kind of teenage mutant wrote this fan fiction? He turns to the toddler and goes, "Hey, you're missing a lot of good pussy. You better wake up." What the fuck? What is this? Anyway, moving forward with Tom Sneddon's pitiful opening statement. Star and Gavin slept in Michael's room that night, but they slept in the bed and Frank and Michael slept on the floor in sleeping bags. So at least, you know, we were honest about that for like 2 seconds anyway, but we'll get into it. So continuing, Tom Sneddon says that the Arvizo boys returned to Neverland a few times during the year 2000, but not with their mother or sister again. Jackson was rarely there, and after several months, the relationship drifted apart. Now, some speculate that the relationship between Michael and the Arvizos drifted because Janet and David split up, and so they were going through some family shit, but that's neither here nor there. And Sneddon, like a total dick, also says in his opening statement that Michael exploited the fact that Gavin didn't have a father figure in his life and created a relationship with Gavin as a surrogate father, like on purpose.
Fuck you!
Can we not be so petty that we're now going into people's motives? Like, can you not do that? That would be wonderful. Because, you know, that's not... Michael wanted to have that relationship with kids. And mind you, it makes sense. Because Michael did not have that relationship with his father. He did not have a father figure, really. He had a manager. You know, and Michael says in his autobiography, in Moonwalk, his dad was always a mystery to him. They didn't have that connection, you know, and so it doesn't surprise me, and it shouldn't surprise anybody, that Michael, in turn, would want to be that person for somebody else, if that's what he was doing, or he would want to make sure that Gavin didn't feel neglected. That's not surprising at all. And then Tom Sneddon says that Michael encouraged the Arvizo kids to call him daddy. Now this statement is misleading by itself. Yes, the children called him daddy. But Tom Mesereau proves during the trial, and when I got to this part of the trial, guys, I was like jumping up and down and like screaming like Mesereau, because he totally proved it, that Janet was the one who made the kids call him that. And she also had the kids call other celebrities daddy or mommy, even writing letters to Michael or to whichever celebrity they were currently hustling, referring to them as mommy or daddy or family. But we'll get more on that. Just wait. It gets better. So anyway, moving forward with Tom Sneddon's opening statement, Michael's number changed, which it changed frequently, mind you. So Gavin was no longer able to contact him. No more phone calls and relatively no contact between Michael and the Arvizos. Until Gavin's participation in the Martin Bashir video changed that. So according to Tom Sneddon, Gavin became one of the boys that slept in Michael's bed, like with Michael, not in the year 2000 and not even during or when the Martin Bashir video was being filmed. But in February of 2003 and in March of 2003 at Neverland Valley Ranch. Ranch? Why can't I talk today? Neverland Valley Ranch. How did I get this job? So moving forward with Tom Sneddon's opening statement. He refers to a snippet of the Martin Bashir video.
God knows in my heart how much I adore children.
But isn't that precisely the problem? That when you actually invite children into your bed, you never know what's going to happen.
But when you say bed, you're thinking sexual. They make that sexual. It's not sexual.
But
we're going to sleep. I tuck them in. I put a little music on, and do a little storytelling. I read a book. It's very sweet. Put the fireplace on. We give them hot milk. You know, we have little cookies. It's very charming, very sweet.
Sure.
And I did talk about this in the last episode. In episode 1, the Chandlers versus Michael Jackson and Extortion Gone Awry. Michael, when he says that he shared his bed, literally means he gave the bed, but I'm not going to go into that again. If you want to hear that, you can go back to the first episode if you feel like it. So Tom Sneddon says that the stories Michael refers to in his statements in the video, like the children's stories, they're not children's books, but internet visits to sexually explicit websites and suitcases full of sexually explicit magazines like Barely Legal or Barely Legal Hardcore. Yes, Michael Jackson had porn. He had porn, and if having porn is illegal, take me straight to jail, because I am a felon.
Shall we go to jail?
And can we also talk about that it was straight porn? It was straight hetero porn that was found on Neverland property. Michael's porn was straight porn. Now, can we all shut the fuck up about Michael being gay? Can we just lay that one to rest now? Like, it's kind of like the, how Michael had to dispel the rumor that him and Janet were the same person by literally standing right next to her on stage while he was accepting an award and saying, I hope this finally put to rest the rumor that Janet and I are the same person.
I hope this finally put to rest another rumor that has been in the press for too many years. Me and Janet really are two different people.
You know, like, what does Michael have to do? Does he literally have to be on stage accepting an award banging Beyonce? Like, in order to prove that he's straight? Like, what the fuck? Anyway, I digress. Getting back into Tom Sneddon's opening statement here. He also said that instead of cookies and milk, like Michael said in the Bashir interview, you get wine, vodka, and bourbon. And he uses the term, Tom Sneddon he's hung up on the term Jesus juice, because I guess Gavin told detectives that that's what Michael called alcohol. He called it Jesus juice. He called wine Jesus juice. And Michael called it that as well, I guess, in the Bashir interview. And I call major shenanigans on that one. Because if it was in the documentary, then Gavin's testimony's tainted on that. Because he could have heard Michael refer to that as alcohol, or refer to wine as Jesus juice, and then Gavin used that in his testimony. Or the adults used that in Gavin's testimony. Because let's face it, this was charged by adults. All of this was charged by adults. But I kind of have a theory about Gavin as well, but I'll get into that later. So Tom Sneddon continues, saying, former employees will tell of how Michael encouraged the kids to drink. And yet, it's funny how no one did a goddamn thing about it. And nobody, like, what the fuck? Like, what the, okay, I'm gonna get into this, but let's continue. Airline stewardesses, according to Tom Sneddon's opening statement, airline stewardesses will testify that they have served Michael alcohol on planes, obscuring the image that MJ created that he doesn't drink, and that they served it to him in Pepsi cans. And that's how the Arvizo kids say that Michael gave them alcohol sometimes. Now, I have heard, I don't remember who I heard it from, but I heard that Michael would drink wine out of Pepsi cans in the presence of children so that they wouldn't see him having a glass of wine and set a bad example. Now, I don't know if this is fact or speculation, but if it is fact, then that makes sense. And if it is speculation, it also makes sense. Now, you know, and I can understand this too. When I was 4 years old, dying of thirst one day, all I saw on the counter was a nice cool can of 7-Up. And I swiped it up and I drank it. And I was shocked as hell when I found out it wasn't just 7-Up in there and it burned and my lungs were on fire. It was my grandpa's 7-Up. And, you know, he would put a little something to bring his 7-Up up a little bit, if you know what I mean. And so that doesn't surprise me that Michael would, if that's true, that he would put the wine in Pepsi cans to obscure the image of him drinking. That doesn't shock me at all. But like I said, that's just speculation. That's more a theory. The MJ theory. Anyway, so Janet, according to Tom Snedden's opening statement, Janet claims to have seen Michael lick Gavin's forehead on that plane.
What the fuck?
Just straight up licked it. On the plane where they're all drinking wine and Michael's passing soda cans full of wine to kids in the presence of, 8 or 9 or 10 people who were on this plane. And just, fucking decided to lick his forehead while everybody was asleep. Okay. And then Tom Sneddon says that several employees will come forward to testify that they saw numerous drunk children running around Neverland. And one of MJ's former security guards, Chris Carter, says he saw Gavin Arvizo trying to drive one of the electric carts that was on the Neverland property. And then when Carter tried to stop him, he noticed that Gavin was in no condition to drive and asked Gavin if he had been drinking. And Gavin said, "Michael told me that I have to drink to be a man," and then he just skipped off into the sunset, and Carter looked the other way like nothing happened. Are you fucking kidding me? This is comedy hour now at this point. Who is buying this so far? And one of the points that I'm going to be making here to you right now is the fact that if all of this stuff was happening on Neverland property, and let's face it, Michael was constantly being sued by people. The aforementioned security guards, and I just hit my microphone. I'm so sorry. I'm just that upset. The aforementioned security guards and employees that Tom Sneddon is having come forward as witnesses, air quotes, they have sued Michael in the past because some of them feel that they were, what is the word I'm looking for? They were wrongfully terminated. And so they sued Michael for wrongfully terminating them. And then Michael countersued them saying, I fucking fired you because you stole from me. Which isn't surprising either. And then Michael ended up winning that counter suing case thing. And the former employees ended up owing him money. And it's funny to me how, these people, they're after all this money. They want all this money. Everybody wanted money off of Michael Jackson's ass. He was a blank check to people. So it's a little surprising to me that if this shit was happening at Neverland, why did nobody take pictures?
Why?
Why did nobody have video?
Why?
Why did nobody immediately take any kind of evidence to a tabloid to get a major payout?
Why?
Why did nobody do that? Because I guarantee you, if you were the person who had solid evidence of Michael Jackson drunking, I can't talk today. If you were the one that had evidence of Michael Jackson getting kids drunk, drinking with these kids, and you had the evidence, do you not think that you would be paid millions of dollars in interviews, millions of dollars from whoever, wherever, however, to get some information about Michael Jackson actually being the child molester that they painted him to be in 1993? Do you not think that this would have happened? Which is why I don't buy any of this. This is me personally. These are my opinions. Now, my opinions don't have to be your opinions. You can continue listening and come up with your own conclusions. Don't take my word for it. It's the facts. It's all in this opening statement and in Tom Mesereau's opening statements and in this whole trial. So let's continue on. It only gets more ridiculous from here. So Jesus Salas, or Salas, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, one of Michael's longtime assistants. Now, this is according to Tom Snedden's opening statement. Jesus Salas claims to have taken an entire bottle of wine and a full bottle of vodka and 4 glasses up to Michael's room. And when he walked in, he saw Michael on the bed with 3 children. And then he left. And then when Salas came back the next morning, both bottles were empty and the glasses had been used. What? Okay. He's implying that those kids drank, that Michael drank a bottle of wine and a bottle of vodka. He split it between him and 3 children.
That doesn't make sense.
Those kids must have the livers of 40-year-old men. A full bottle of vodka and a bottle of wine dusted by Michael Jackson and 3 kids.
Yo, drink this vodka down the hatch. Come on.
Also, if Michael was trying to get a bunch of kids drunk, or in this case, try to give them alcohol poisoning, why in perfect hell would he have his assistant deliver it to the room, literally on a silver platter, as a witness to it?
Jesus. Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me?
No! The definition of the word idiot, which you fucking are.
This goes back to what I just said a couple minutes ago. If somebody had the proof, they would have come forward and they would have gotten paid a long time ago. And if Michael's pulling bold shit like this, if he was pulling shit like this, just openly having assistants come in to deliver alcohol so that he could be a felon, this shit would have come out years ago. Anyway, moving forward with the opening statement. So Tom Snedden says in his opening statement that Michael talked to Gavin about masturbation and says that everybody does it. And he also says, later they go more into it in the trial, he says that Michael told him that if a boy doesn't masturbate, he might grow up to rape a girl. This was disproven. Michael did not say that to Gavin. And I'll tell you who did when we get to Tom Mesereau's opening statement. Tom Snedden also says that Michael was conditioning Gavin to be, by doing adult things and tainting his childhood and introducing him to alcohol and teaching him how to masturbate and how to be defiant towards his parents, basically painting Michael as a textbook child molester.
Oh my God! Is there no end to your madness?
And he says that Starr walked in on Michael Jackson masturbating himself while also masturbating Gavin with his hand inserted inside Gavin's underwear. But that story has changed so many times. Starr and Gavin just could not get on the same page as to what happened.
Why the fuck you lying?
I will get into that, believe me. So Janet Arvizo, their mother, according to Tom Snedden, claims that they were being held hostage at Neverland. Held hostage at Neverland.
Why you always lying?
They weren't allowed to know the time, even though there were 3 huge-ass clock towers on the property, and not including the little teeny clocks that were all over the place.
Oh my God.
They were held hostage, and yet, they managed to escape 3 times, and then came back. And then they came back every single time. They would escape, and then come back. And then they'd escape again, and then they'd go back. And then they'd escape again, only to go back.
Stop fucking lying.
Also, there is no way to be held hostage at Neverland. I've been to Neverland. I've seen the damn gate. It's a wood fence. It's 2 feet high. Okay, I was busting up laughing. I went to Neverland a couple months ago, and I visited with somebody, and we went, and it was actually a great experience. I'm not allowed to talk about what happened. I don't want to get people, I just can't talk about it. But I've seen the fucking fence. Right when you walk in, right when you drive up to Neverland, there's that big, huge brown gate with the brick walls on either side, but the brick walls are only like maybe 40 feet in length, and then it immediately dips down to a 2-foot fence. Neverland is not an enclosed property. You hop a 2-foot fence, you're free, bye. But they were held hostage. Okay. So anyway, Tom Sneddon says that they were forced to do that rebuttal tape and forced to say what was written for them in a script to make Michael look better. And in the Arvizos' own words, they practically had a gun to their head, being forced to say nice things about Michael Jackson, which we all know is not true. But I'll get into that. Tom Sneddon also says they were forbidden from seeing the Martin Bashir interview, that they were forced to get their passports done so that they could be taken to Brazil. They were told that if they didn't comply with everything Michael wanted, that they knew how to make their grandparents disappear. What kind of shit is this? And by the way, when I say they, I'm referring to the so-called co-conspirators, Mark Schaffel, Dieter Weissner, Ron Knitzer, Frank Cassio, and Vinnie Black, who also goes by Vincent Amen or Amen. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but we'll just call him Vinnie Black because that's also a name he goes by. So that is the basic gist of Tom Sneddon's entire opening statement and what the Arvizos are accusing Michael Jackson of. They're accusing Michael Jackson of, and I'm going to focus on these charges because these are the most important charges of this whole trial. And they get into his finances and stuff in this. I mean, they were really dragging Michael through the mud. Tom Sneddon was so desperate for a conviction after losing everything in 1993. And I'll get into Tom Sneddon's vendetta against Michael Jackson. And there are several law officials and attorneys and experts that speak to Tom Sneddon's absolute hard-on that he had for Michael and how pissed off, for lack of a better word, pissed off he was that he lost that whole case in 1993. But we'll get into that.
You'll see! You'll all see!
So the main charges that I'm going to be talking about and going over with you guys and helping everybody understand the truth are going to be the false imprisonment claims, the conspiracy charges, the child abduction charges, which go kind of hand in hand with the aforementioned, and the molestation allegations. Those are that is the bread and butter of this whole trial. The ones that everybody really, really paid the most attention to. So those are the ones that I'll be going over, and this is probably going to have to be a two-parter because I also want to go into everything else, into the media frenzies, into the people that turn their backs on Michael, into the lesser charges in the trial. I want to go over it all because I feel like we all deserve to know. Oh, my voice just cracked. Sexy. We all deserve to know the truth. And just like in the 1993 trial, the truth was not told. The news created their own narratives. They considered Michael to be guilty before a verdict was even reached. And so their narratives are not to be trusted. So we're going to go into this. But first, we're going to go over Tom Mesereau's beautiful opening statement. And this, in my opinion, Tom Mesereau won this whole trial just in his opening statement. And you're about to see why.
All I can tell y'all is that it's about to go down.
So Tom Mesereau begins his opening statement by saying that if Tom Sneddon is to be believed, then Michael Jackson conspired to imprison a family, abduct children, and extort. That he molested children, gave a cancer patient child alcohol to reduce his inhibitions and molest him. And then he says that he is here to tell the jury that the charges are fictitious, they're bogus, and they never happened.
And the
he makes a promise to the jury that he is going to fulfill, that he is going to disprove these charges against Michael Jackson. And he says that he's going to tell the jury what kind of lives the Arvizos led, who MJ was, and what Neverland is, and how he met the family in the first place. So he starts out by immediately ruining, like I said earlier, he ruins the perfect victim image that Tom Sneddon created for the Arvizos by telling the jury how Janet and Gavin called Jay Leno and tried to get money from him. Now, Mr. Leno told the Santa Barbara police that something was wrong. They were looking for a mark. It sounded scripted. The mother was in the background, and I terminated the conversation, quote unquote. Comedian George Lopez was also approached by Gavin and Janet. He was asked for money. He didn't want to give them money. And so they accused him of stealing $300 from Gavin's wallet. And there is a radio interview of George Lopez, and it's also on video, of what went down, and I'm going to play that for you guys right now.
You know, when the second trial in Santa Maria, at the Laugh Factory, there was a comedy camp, and I was one of the mentors for one of the kids, a mother and two boys and the girl. And then the boy got sick, and then the mother said, you know, come to the hospital and you know, talk to the child. And so I said, all right. And then we became friends, and then we started a blood drive to raise blood to help the kid. And then I said to him, listen, man, if you get out of the hospital, I'll take you to lunch. I'll take you to go eat, you know, but you got to eat. You got to get better. So I took him to the mall over there, and then we went to Pizza Hut. And when they came back at the house, him and his dad, I dropped them off, and there was a wallet in my fireplace on top of the mantle. The room nobody goes into. I have a room that nobody goes into. So I said, what's this wallet? I open it up, and it's a picture of the child, and then there's a $50 bill in there. And I was like, what's this kid doing with $50 bills? So I gave the wallet back to the Laugh Factory, and then when Tom Mesereau, Michael Jackson's attorney, called to do some, you know, vetting of different people, he called the owner of the Laugh Factory, and the owner of the Laugh Factory said, yeah, you know, the alleged father claimed that George Lopez took $300 from the alleged child's wallet. And then Tom Mesereau said, oh, wait a minute, so now they're using them to try to get money, using celebrities. So I became a witness to prove that the alleged family might have been accusing Michael Jackson because of financial gain.
Actress Vernee Watson, who appeared on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, she played on Vivian, and the movie Antoine Fisher, I don't know how to pronounce this. I can't pronounce any words today. But anyway, in any event, the family met Vernee Watson at a dance school. And as soon as Vernee met Janet and Gavin, they wanted to move into her house and wanted money. And she refused. And keep in mind, guys, this is all proven. There's testimony, there's everything in this trial. Everything in Tom Mesereau's opening statement is proven. Okay? Keep that in mind. Moving forward with his opening statement, he mentions a comedian named Louise Pellinker. Now, Louise was approached by Janet at the Laugh Factory and told they needed money for medical bills and living expenses. Now, what Janet didn't tell Louise was that their insurance was covering all the medical bills, every last penny.
Oh, you motherfuckers. Okay.
But Louise didn't know that, so she gave them $20,000, two $10,000 checks. She was duped out of $20,000.
Your earthly money holds no appeal to me.
$20,000.
And most of this money, according to Janet, was going to be used to renovate a bedroom in their home for Gavin to recover in. Because I guess the home wasn't hospitable to Gavin's cancer condition. Okay? Air quotes. Air quotes everywhere. When Louise Pellinker contacted the builder who had gone to the home to do the renovations, he said that he had been stiffed and not paid after renovating the entire bedroom, and that the money had been used to buy electronics, like a huge TV and a DVD player. And they also approached Michael Tyson. Adam Sandler was attempted to reach, Jim Carrey, and a slew of others were attempted to be reached. And this is a pattern of behavior. Swindling the rich and the famous to give them money, using Gavin's cancer as a pawn in their game. This is who the Arvizos are, and it gets worse. Tom Mesereau goes into Michael's childhood now, and how he had to trade his childhood to rehearse and perform since the age of 5.
My childhood was completely taken away from me. There was no Christmas, there was no birthdays. It was not a normal childhood. No normal pleasures of childhood. Those were exchanged for hard work, struggle, and pain, and eventual material and professional success. But as an awful price, I cannot recreate that part of my life.
Tom goes into Michael's whole background, having to perform at such a young age. Imagine what you do for work. Imagine what you do for your job right now. Now imagine having done that since you were 5. So, and then Tom Mesereau explains that Neverland is not a front for a big child molestation thing going on that like Tom Sneddon is telling people. No, Neverland is a Disney-like, fantasy-like atmosphere full of animals and rides, and it captures all of the wonderment and spirit of a childhood that Michael never had, recreated behind closed gates for him to enjoy with those whom he allowed to venture inside. Now, the gates, everybody, talks about the gates. Why close it off? Why close it off? Do you not understand that Michael Jackson has had no privacy since he was 9? He went through puberty in the public eye. He went through those awkward stages in the public eye. He had all of his private dirty laundry aired out. Well, not dirty laundry, but your things that you don't want to go out into the public, the people you're dating, your health, things like that. He was scrutinized by the public. He can't, and like he said in the was it Diane Sawyer? No, it wasn't Diane Sawyer. Who is that lady? But anyway, I don't remember her name, but he did an interview with her, and he says that he can't take a walk in the park, he can't go outside, he can't go to the store. So he created everything he wanted, everything he needed behind his gates.
I go around the world dealing with running and hiding. I can't take a walk in the park, I can't go to the store, I have to hide in a room. You feel like you're in prison. There's a time when I give a concert, I like to have as many people want to come can come and enjoy the show. And there's a time where you like to be in private when you put on your pajamas, go to sleep, cut off the light, ding, and lay down. That's your private space. If you go in the park, I can't go in the park though. So I create my own park at Neverland, my own water space, my movie theater, my theme park. That's all for me to enjoy.
So anyway, with going back to Tom Mesereau's opening statement, most of the people that came to Neverland were intercity kids from poverty, drugs, violence, and just major problems. And MJ invited them to Neverland for recreation, to forget about the things that they're too young to worry about and to experience a childhood in a way that Michael never had. He loved to see joy brought to the faces of young kids. It brought him so much joy. It really, really did. And I can't say it enough. And I hope you guys are really listening to that. I hope I'm not falling on deaf ears here. So anyway, Tom Mesereau says that the main street at Neverland is named after Michael's mother. It's named, I can't think of a better place to molest a child, but right next to the street that I named after my mom, that really gets me going. Like, are you serious? Oh my God. Like, this is not a place to molest children. Oh. So anyway, Tom Mesereau gets into how Michael met Gavin. So Michael met Gavin when someone had contacted him and told him that the child was dying of cancer and he wanted to meet him and needed his help. Now, Michael is incredibly gullible, guys. Let's just face it. We all know it. He was super gullible and he was very naive. He didn't see what all the other celebrities before him saw. Except for poor Louise Palanker, she didn't see it. She was duped out of 20,000. He didn't see an exploitive family looking for a cash grab. He saw a child dying of cancer who needed a friend and needed to heal. And Michael wanted to be there. What a son of a bitch Michael is. What a monster for wanting to help somebody.
You bastard!
So anyway, Michael and Gavin talk on the phone, and Michael sent toys to the family. And this kind of behavior isn't just exhibited towards the Arvizos. Michael had done these types of things with tons of other kids, like Dave. We all know about Dave, and some of y'all think Michael Jackson is Dave. I'm gonna have to go into a whole video about Michael being alive or whatever. That's for a different video. So anyway, moving forward with the opening statement, Tom Mesereau says that Janet was a little too eager to meet Michael. And Mesereau proves in the trial that Janet was using her kids as tools and was trying to find a celebrity to latch onto to create their life for them and give them advantages that they didn't have. And Michael fell for it. And Michael wanted to help Gavin. He truly did. He invited him and his family to Neverland. He tried to help Gavin in ways that he thought might work. Michael was told that Gavin was pretty much on his last legs. And so Michael tried using some of the techniques that he had read about in a few of the nearly 1 million books that he owned and the thousands he kept at Neverland on how to help cancer patients. And the way that he did that was he asked Gavin, and this is all in the opening statement, guys. This is it. He asked Gavin to envision he's playing Pac-Man and that the cancer cells are being gobbled up by the good people. He had gotten that from studies of visualization techniques that were perfected in England years ago for cancer patients. And the theory is if you visualize in your mind a way to beat a disease, if you imagine good cells going after the bad cells, and if you can imagine healing through imagery, you can beat the disease, and the studies show that sometimes it succeeded. MJ taught that to Gavin. He also taught him how to climb trees when he was well enough. He did all kinds of things that were asked of him by Gavin's parents, Janet and David, including taking time from his own career to help Gavin and his family. The trap was being set. Everything was being laid out. The Arvizos were laying the foundation for their extortion, which came. It came. So Mesereau starts to go into Janet's history at this point, and everybody needs to hold on tight. Okay? Because Janet has a long history of ensnaring people for money. In one of the small details in Tom Snedden's opening case, he makes very, very minuscule mention to a deposition where Janet admitted she lied. And he even straight up says in his opening, Tom Snedden, his opening statement, he says that Janet, he tries to defend this woman. He goes, no, Janet has done things that are wrong, as we all have, and it shouldn't be held against her. But boy, if you don't shut the fuck, if you don't get out of here. You get out of here. Get out. Like, I can't. Oh my god. So he tried. He tried to make Janet look good, but when Tom Mesereau's in the courtroom, nobody is safe. Sorry, nobody's escaping his target line. He took her down. So anyway, Tom Snedden makes that very small mention to that deposition where she admitted that she lied. And he tried to make her look like an honest woman. But like I said, Tom Mesereau knows better. And so he decided to give all of the details of that deposition. So Janet Arvizo sued J.C. Penney in West Covina in Los Angeles County, where she was living with her family at various locations. Remember that term for later, various locations. That's very important. So anyway, she claimed that she and her children were the victims of battery, false imprisonment, and infliction of emotional distress in July of 1999. Now, do those charges sound familiar to anybody? Do they? Anyway, almost a year later, she amended that complaint to add sexual assault by a security guard, saying that in the JCPenney parking lot, he fondled her breasts and her nipples were squeezed 10 to 20 times. And she was punched with a closed fist by a JCPenney security guard, and she was molested in her vaginal area, and she was called racial slurs. Okay, this woman, and I'm gonna go into this too. Janet Arvizo is mentally ill. I'll go into that. She's crazy. She needs medication. She doesn't need money. She needs meds. Medication. And I don't know about y'all. I mean, she said that her breasts were fondled and her nipples were squeezed 10 to 20 times. I don't know about y'all, but if, like, I'm in the middle of being sexually assaulted and someone's squeezing my nipples, I just have to count. I have to count. Shut up, Janet.
Fuck off, Janet.
So this is the case where she was testifying under oath. This is the case where Tom Sneddon says that she lied and all this and that, but it shouldn't be held against her. But it absolutely should, because this is absolutely pertinent to this case. And that is the case, the JCPenney case. That is the case where Janet admitted to lying. But the lawsuit was settled. Remember in the last video where I talked about how settlements come about? Yeah, that's what happened. JCPenney said, get your dick up out of my face. We got business to do. Take your money. That's what you want. Get out of our face. And the family got a total of $152,500. That's the Arvizo family. That's what happened. And then also, I should tell you, they were busted for shoplifting. Yeah, that's how this whole thing started. The family was busted for shoplifting. There was no assault. There was no fondling of boobies, and there were no nipple squeezings or vaginal area touchings. They were busted shoplifting, and they got in trouble. So anyway, David Arvizo, Janet's now ex-husband, then her actual husband, said Janet coached her children in that case on what to say. And a witness named Mary Holzer, an employee for a law firm that represented Janet Arvizo, Gavin Arvizo, starring David, in the JCPenney case, came forward to testify in the Michael trial that Janet admitted she lied. Miss Holzer said that Janet told her that her husband had a cousin in the Mexican mafia, and that's why she never came forward before, because Janet threatened her. And she feared that she was going to be harmed. And she also testified that the photos that Janet took of the bruises that she received from security guards, air quotes, that beat her, were actually inflicted by her husband the same night they were detained. Do you see what I'm saying? They staged that whole event. Which is not unheard of. People do that all the time. So anyway, on December 18th of the year 2000, in the deposition in the JCPenney case, Janet said her husband David never assaulted her. Never touched her. But she now says that she's been assaulted for 17 years, every year of their marriage. And on September 29th, 2001, Janet told LAPD that she was assaulted by David, her husband. Less than a month later, she filed for divorce. Less than a month after she filed a welfare application that said her husband assaulted her. And the $152,000 settlement from JCPenney was never mentioned on her welfare application, which was under penalty of perjury. She never would have gotten on welfare if they knew that she had that kind of money. She committed perjury and fraud. She defrauded the welfare system. Okay? This is who Janet Arvizo is. And then on November 26, 2001, Janet told LAPD that David, who at this point is her soon-to-be ex-husband, molested her daughter, Davelyn, 12 years earlier. But she'd never made that allegation before. Janet loves to claim molestation, sexual assault, and child false imprisonment, because these are all things that are difficult to prove, and I'll get into that. Or prove that they didn't happen anyway. I'll get into it. Janet claimed false imprisonment. Again, like I said, she was the victim of terrorist threats, and she claimed that her ex-husband had willfully harmed her children. Now, the allegation against Michael are the third claims of false imprisonment she has made, and approximately the fourth claim of sexual assault she has made over the years. And like I said, she loves to make these allegations. On November 26, 2001, Davelin parroted her mother, claiming that her father physically abused her brothers and threatened to kill her mother. And Tom Mesereau calls witnesses in this trial that tell how Janet often says people are trying to kill her. And like I said, Janet is mentally fucking ill. She is not well. And even during the trial, people assumed, and probably rightfully assumed, that she was medicated, because while she would be doing her testimony, she would start out fine. But then towards the middle end, it was like her meds wore off and she'd go crazy.
Here's Janet.
She would snap her fingers at the jurors and tell them to look at her, and it just make the jurors really uncomfortable. And a lot of the jurors spoke about that. Like, she was a terrible, terrible person to put on the stand.
I wanted to ask about the mother, and you, Miss Cook, specifically talked about her. You said at one point that she was sort of waving her finger at you.
And she snapped.
Show me what she did.
Yeah, just like that. And you don't snap your fingers at a jury. You snap your fingers to get a dog to mind you.
She would look at the jury and then snap her fingers and say, you know, this is the way it should be.
And she'd be right in our faces.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was very intimidating, because Mike and I were directly across from the witnesses. And she would turn right to us like she's just, you know.
But Melissa, what did that say to you? I mean, apart from how it made you feel, what did that say to you about who she was and the testimony she gave?
Her testimony, a lot of the parts of her testimony, I wanted to just break out laughing, but I couldn't. You know, she was up and down, and the parts that I felt that she should have been more, you know, more emotional about, she wasn't.
Putting her on the stand only helped the defense. On November 26, 2001, we're going back to Tom Mesereau's opening statement now. On November 26, 2001, Janet filed a copy of an arrest report on her husband with the social services agency in LA to expedite the aid that she was going to get, the public assistance that she wanted. And the assistance that she applied for, she didn't disclose the assets or the bank accounts with the JCPenney settlement money in it. And all the other things that she had and other things that she was required to disclose under penalty of perjury. She was trying to make herself look even more destitute than she was already claiming to be in order to get all of this public assistance and financial aid from the government. She's all about money.
Hello, I like money.
And she claimed that her former husband, David, struck her and the children for many years. She claims, and Tom Sneddon claims, that she is the victim of a whole lifetime of abuse. Again, trying to paint the Arvizos as victims. But Janet also claims that other relatives of hers are in the drug business and abused her and her kids as well. Everyone's abusing Janet. Everyone's abusing Janet. Everybody hates Janet.
Janet.
Tom Mesereau presented evidence about her efforts to get money from celebrities by claiming she was destitute when she's obviously not, after having received a $152,000 settlement from JCPenney and welfare assistance as well. Fraudulent welfare, by the way. So now Tom Mesereau goes more into how they would swindle celebrities. The Arvizos, this is great. The Arvizos had an apartment in East Los Angeles. It was a small studio apartment, sparsely decorated, looked like it had been vacant for a very long time, and for the most part it was, because Janet really lived with her parents in El Monte. But when she got engaged to her current husband, to David, she moved in with him and the family. But when she wanted celebrities to contribute money to her after she told them that her son had cancer and they were poor, guess where she took them? Guess where she took them to make herself look sad? Yep, the studio apartment in East LA. She kept it. She kept that sad studio apartment, even when she was living in other locations. Now, David, her husband then, worked at Vaughn's as a teamster and got full medical coverage. Full medical coverage. And Gavin was treated at Kaiser Hospital on Sunset in Los Angeles. And there were no co-payments, no deductibles. His medical expenses were paid in full. But Janet put into effect a program to take her son and try to use him to obtain money. And this is how she did it. And this is all in Tom Mesereau's opening statement. She approached Mid-Valley News, an El Monte newspaper, and said she couldn't pay her son's medical bills. She told them it was $12,000 per chemo treatment. Treatments, again, by the way, that were being paid by the insurance company in full. She asked the people at this newspaper to help her raise money, and she wanted to put an ad in the paper. And they did so. They helped her, but when the newspaper told her that if the money she was raising was for her son, then she needed to have an account in her son's name and not her own. And to use Tom Mesereau's words, she was real squirrely about that. And Tom Mesereau proves during the trial, he proves that Janet went to a woman to help her set up that account. And there was a whole mess trying to get Gavin's social security number for the account. And then Janet was able to find a clever way to make it so that she could access the money in the account. She made herself a signatory, saying that it was for Gavin's benefit. So she had her signature on the account. And this allowed her to withdraw money from the account whenever she wanted. And the people at the newspaper said that they were so moved by the story of Janet and Gavin that they brought her a turkey on Thanksgiving Day, thinking they were being good citizens. But when they came to her door with it, Janet got upset, and she didn't want a turkey, she wanted money. Better be some money stuffing in that turkey, she probably said. That's probably what she said. So anyway, on June 15th in the year 2000, Janet received $10,000 from Louise Palanker. Remember, she split up the $20,000 into two. You remember, Louise Palanker hung out at the Laugh Factory, right? And Janet wanted her kids to be actors, and she took them to the acting school in LA. They performed at the Laugh Factory, which is how they met Louise. And the check that Janet got from Louise was deposited into Janet's mother's account. So there wouldn't be a paper trail for the welfare people to find her, and she didn't have to disclose it to welfare authorities, and so she could continue to con people. All of the money that she would get from celebrities, she put it into other people's accounts. Janet was smart. Janet was not stupid. She was crazy. She was real crazy, but she was not stupid. Now, on June 10th, 2000, David Arvizo also received a $10,000 check from Louise again. And Louise testified that she testified in this trial that she was told that the family was destitute and they needed that money for medical bills and living expenses, which is why she gave it to them. She was taken for a ride. So anyway, moving forward, on July 29th, 2000, almost a week after she hid all of that money, Gavin requested to meet Michael Jackson. There was a dispute over who contacted Michael first for the Arvizos. Whether it was a hairdresser friend of his named Carol Lemire, who was indicated that she arranged contact through Michael's assistant when she heard about Gavin, who she learned about because her son went to the same dance school that Gavin was attending. The same dance school, mind you, where Janet approached Verde Watson and asked for money and asked to just move in to her house. Yeah. So Michael learned about Gavin, no matter who introduced them, Michael learned about Gavin and his illness and arranged for a gift basket and toys to be sent to the hospital. Now, on August 27th, 2000, the Arvizos made their first trip to Neverland. And that was part of Michael's attempt to help a family that he was told was poor with a seriously ill child. And during the early months, the Arvizo children were pretty well behaved. Nobody seemed to have a problem with them on the premises, but that later changed. On September 21st of the year 2000, the Arvizos visited Neverland, the whole family, including David. The mothers stayed in the same guest quarters that Elizabeth Taylor and Marlon Brando frequented and requested every time they stayed at Neverland. And this is the same cottage that Janet claims to have been falsely imprisoned inside of later on. Janet also claims that she was prevented from knowing the time. Like I said earlier, she couldn't see any clocks. But Neverland has a huge clock tower. Huge! Overlooking Neverland on a prominent hill with a great view of the property. And it's lit at night, and it's prominent during the daytime. And to the right of that huge clock is another huge clock. And throughout Neverland there are clocks, many of them Disney-like in nature, big ornate clocks. But she wasn't allowed to know the time.
You're putting me on.
In the fall of 2000, just as they were visiting Neverland, that's when they hustled Jay Leno, or tried to hustle Jay Leno, George Lopez, and weatherman Fritz Coleman in LA. Now, they did kind of con Fritz Coleman successfully. I'll get into that in just a minute. But you already know the approach on Jay Leno, who doesn't associate with Michael Jackson. And then they went after George Lopez, and we'll explain the George Lopez thing again. You know, the Arvizos wanted money. George didn't want to give them money. Like, yeah, he was cool with hanging out with them, maybe taking them to lunch and shit. I'm not going to give them money. And so George Lopez found the wallet in his house. He returned it to the Laugh Factory. Then he found out later that the Arvizos were claiming that they said that George Lopez stole $300. And remember, George Lopez was really shocked to see that Gavin had a $50 bill in his wallet. Like, what the fuck? Like, they're supposed to be poor. Where did he get a $50 bill? And if they're poor, how did Gavin have $300? You know what I mean? Anyway. So yeah, and that's how they got to a lot of their celebrities, was through their time at the Laugh Factory. Because, again, mind you, that was their best in. So now all of a sudden, Gavin wants to meet all these comedians. George Lopez, Jay Leno, Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey. And then they approached Fritz Coleman, the weatherman. And they told him the same story, that Gavin was ill with cancer. And then Fritz arranged a fundraiser at the Laugh Factory. And it's later proven throughout the trial that Gavin, at this fundraiser at the Laugh Factory, was standing in the lobby practically with his hand out, with Janet right there just pushing him on, you know? And Jamie Masada, remember from Tom Sneddon's opening statement, also claims that he was the one that contacted Michael Jackson, though everybody kind of believes that Carol Lemire was the one that introduced Gavin to Michael, but that's really neither here nor there. Jamie was questioned about the money raised at the Laugh Factory for Gavin, and Masada said they dropped the money off at the hospital. But the hospital has no record of cash being paid because they didn't need to pay anything. Remember the Teamster insurance policy where all the medical expenses were paid in full? And Fritz Coleman doesn't know where the money went either. It just disappeared into thin air. God, I really can't talk. This is around the time that they also accused George Lopez of stealing that $300 from Gavin's wallet, by the way. So in October of 2000, Janet, through Gavin, told Michael Jackson that we have no means of transportation. We're poor, we can't do it. And so Michael gave them an SUV. And it's proven in the trial that Janet didn't want her name on the registration because she never disclosed it in her welfare applications or in other applications for public assistance, including disability, which she applied for and received twice. And when she met with police on a later date, one of her major complaints was that she wanted her car back because the car, I guess, was severely damaged and no one knows how exactly. But it went back to Neverland for repairs, and one of the first things she asked police during all of this was, "Where's my SUV?" Wow, if your son is molested, your priorities are fucked up. Anyway. So Janet never directly went to Michael and asked for money. She always used Gavin and the children, and they always went to Michael asking for help, and they were helped. Not as part of some criminal conspiracy to imprison or intoxicate kids or a family, but out of concern for Gavin's health and the overall family well-being. And 1 month after Michael gave them the SUV, the incident with the newspaper happened. Remember, with the whole trying to raise money for Gavin in that El Monte newspaper, and they brought her the turkey. Yeah, that's around the time that this happened. On December 22nd, 2000, the Arvizos hustled $2,000 out of actor Chris Tucker. And then Tom Sneddon, at this point in Tom Mesereau's opening statement, tries to make an objection, saying like, "Oh, that's argumentative. You can't use the word hustled." Like, shut up, Tom Sneddon. Like, why? Like, Tom Sneddon tries so hard to object during Tom Mesereau's entire opening statement. It's just comedy.
I object, Your Honor, and I move to strike!
But yeah, so the Arvizos had tried to hustle to that $2,000 out of Chris Tucker. Now, the way that the Arvizos got to Chris Tucker was Chris, they reached out and Chris invited them onto the set of Rush Hour.
So I was at the Comedy Store one night, not the Comedy Store, but the Laugh Factory. Right. And I was performing one night, and this guy came up to me, and I thought he worked at the club, but it was this guy. He said, my kid has cancer, and he loves you as a comedian, and he's having a benefit at the Laugh Factory, and he wants you to come and perform. And I said, okay, I'll try to come, and, I'll try to come, all right? But I didn't know, because I'm always busy. So just so happened, the night before, this was months later, the night before he was doing the benefit, I had showed up at the club the night before. And his father came up to me again. He said, tomorrow night is the benefit, and the kid's named Gavin. So I said, okay, tomorrow night I'm not doing that, and I'll be here. He had cancer. So I came and met him. His name is Gavin, and he's a real good friend of mine. I love him to death. He said, he met me. He said, hey, Chris, how you doing? Thanks for coming. And he said, I know Michael Jackson. I was like, yeah, right, yeah, okay. How you doing? You feeling good? He said, all right, yeah, I know Michael Jackson. Then I come and find out later he really did know Michael Jackson. So he would always tell me, I said, did Michael call you today? Did you mention me? Really? When can I go to Never Never Land? He was all... He always used to talk about how he went to Never Never Land. I'm like, when you gonna take me? Well, I want you to tell Michael I want to go too. So he used to tell Michael that I know Chris Tucker, and he used to da-da-da. And finally, one day I was filming Rush Hour 2. I'll never forget this. I was in the middle of a scene, and Gavin's bad too. He's real bad, but I love him. But we was filming the scene, me and Jackie, and Gavin runs on the set in the middle of the set, and he comes and he said, Michael Jackson wants to speak to you on the phone. I said, what? He said, Michael's on the phone. I said, break, cut. Jackie, do another stunt scene. I gotta go. So I went in the trailer, and Michael was on the phone, and Michael said, I love your work, and I want to meet you. And I was like, I want to meet you too. I love you too. I love you, Chris. I love you too, Michael. So we finally hooked up. He said, you come to New York, because he was working on his album. He said, you come to New York, we hook up, and so we finally met, and now it's all because of this kid, Gavin, and he's doing well now. He was, Michael was with him when he was doing chemotherapy and all that stuff, so now he's doing well. He doesn't have cancer anymore. Oh, that's great.
And Chris Tucker thought, that they were only going to spend like one day together. But one day ended up turning into like 10, like 2 weeks. And couldn't get rid of him. Like, they just glommed onto him. And Chris was one of the celebrities who warned Michael, like, dude, like, don't do it.
I was just going to say, Mike, that I think Chris Tucker may have been the best witness in that regard. Maybe had that paralegal who was also powerful. But Chris Tucker basically delivered everything the defense needed.
Sure, and he did it using buzzwords. Interesting use of language. I'm a real fan of language, as you know, Dan, and I wrote down some of the words that he used. He used possessed to describe the mother of the accuser. Not just that she was mentally unstable in his words, but that she was possessed, chaotic. He talked about his girlfriend, former girlfriend, getting tangled up with this family. He talked about the accuser himself being cunning, smart and cunning. Quoted him as saying, the boy coming up to him saying, listen, I want that, let me have that. I'm not feeling good. Taking advantage of his illness again and again until, as Chris Tucker testified, he began to get suspicious, nervous, scared. His own self-descriptions came to believe that they were out for money. In fact, he had sent them a lot of money, wired the money, and was prepared to give them a car, and hauled all that back, eased out of it, he said, asked his then-girlfriend to ease out of it, back away from this family, told Michael Jackson to do the same thing. So if the jury latches onto those buzzwords, as I think a lot of people in the courtroom did, that's the picture they're going to be left with.
Let me just read the
Not that they all came and said...
Let me just read the quotes from the stuff you were just talking about. Chris Tucker, he was referring to the accuser in this case. This is not the mother. He was really smart, and he was cunning. But at the time, I always overlooked it. And his brother was definitely cunning. Remember, they are the two most important witnesses for the prosecution. He was always saying stuff like, Chris, let me have this, let me have that. Come on, I'm not feeling too good. Of course, referring to his cancer. And Tucker talked about the fact that he gave the family some money and that they just kept asking for more and more.
But we all know Michael, his heart's bigger than his brain. And so he let these stupid-ass people into his life, but we'll get into that later. So going back to the opening statement, the Arvizos got the money from Chris Tucker, again, by claiming to be destitute, and they needed the money for medical bills. This was their default reasoning for the money. This was the default story that they regurgitated onto these celebrities. This is what they told them. On October 21st, 2001, Janet reported her husband, David Arvizo, to police, claiming assault, terrorist threats, and things of that nature. She told police that Michael Jackson, Kobe Bryant, and Fritz Coleman would help her in her suit against her ex-husband. They would help her. They'd be right there to help her. One problem. Kobe Bryant has no idea who she is.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
And on the same day she made that report, the Arvizos convinced the police that they were destitute and had nothing. She hoodwinked the popo. And on October 4th, 2001, Janet brought a video and photos of celebrities she knew to show the police. And then the police tried to raise money for her and her family. And they did. She is out here taking money from the pockets of anybody who can't stop her. My God. On October 31st, 2001, Chris Tucker took the Arvizos to Knott's Berry Farm. And on the same day, Janet went on disability so she could receive a $104 a week check. Didn't disclose the JCPenney settlement and never disclosed the disability she was receiving to the welfare authorities, who were paying her as well. And on November 9th, 2001, almost 10 days later after she starts receiving disability checks, she bought a new car for $23,000. That's a lot of dollars. And a week later, she applied for welfare and food stamps. She reported no assets. She omitted her disability income and never mentioned the Washington Mutual account that was set up for the newspaper fundraiser or the City National Bank account where she deposited the $152,500 from the JCPenney settlement. This woman is a fraud, people. Why are people so hung up on what Michael may or may not have done instead of looking at what Janet has done? This is pissing me off. The more I'm getting into this podcast, the more angry I'm getting. So anyway, moving forward with the opening statement. Goose fraba. In January of 2002, MJ continued to give gifts to the Arvizos, all kinds of shit. And meanwhile, back on the ranch, on January 12th, Janet receives a welfare check. And she gets another one on January 31st. She gets another one on December 8th, and another one on March 20th, and another one on April 6th. In October of 2002, she reapplies for welfare and falsely claimed to not have received any assistance in the prior 3 years. And what we can gather from this opening statement and from what I've told you, she's been getting nothing but assistance. The only person not helping her is herself at this point. So anyway, on December 2nd, 2002, the family moved into a new home on St. Andrews with Janet's fiance, who she's since married, Major J. Jackson, who's in the Army. Major J. Jackson, can we just pay attention to the last name? He paid her rent. Major J. Jackson, who was in the Army, paid her rent, and she was depositing her welfare checks into his account to hide them. Like I said, Janet's not stupid. And on January 3rd, 2003, Jay Jackson paid her back rent on the Sad Soto apartment in East LA when the family wasn't living there at all. They were living with Jay Jackson. And these are just some of the money fraud instances and perjury that Janet committed prior to be claiming to be falsely imprisoned and conspired against by Michael Jackson, as well as claiming Gavin was sexually assaulted. This is the person who was accusing Michael Jackson, people. This is who I almost called her Janet Jackson, whoops. Janet Arvizo is. Okay, and then so Tom Mesereau, the mean G, moves on to the indictments against Michael Jackson at this point. And he starts by going through some of the purchases made by Janet Arvizo, completely paid for by Michael, by the way, while she claimed she was being falsely imprisoned. So she claims that she was being falsely imprisoned inside of Neverland. She wasn't allowed to know the time. She wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone. She wasn't allowed to do this. She wasn't allowed to do that. She was terrified for her life, terrified for her children's lives. And so while she's being falsely imprisoned, mind you, also being falsely imprisoned inside of luxury hotels as well, because they traveled during this period of false imprisonment, where she had to escape 3 times and then wound up returning every time. And one of the best quotes from the, one of Tom Mazurow's funniest quotes from the opening statement, and it's just so snarky. He says, let's go into what she was buying during this terrible period of false imprisonment. So yeah, we're gonna go into what she bought while she was being held hostage. And the dates that she bought it on. They have all of the proof. They've got all of the receipts, literally. February 11th, 2003. Full leg wax at Bearskin Salon, $50. A lip wax, bikini wax, and a facial at Aromatherapy Day Spa, $140. February 21st, 2003. Hair products purchased by Janet at Lisa's Beauty, $28.91. Robinson's May, she purchases bras and jockey bikinis, $92.24. February 25th, 2003, she buys clothes at Inker Blue, $448.04. Goes to Robinson's May to purchase bras, thongs, and bikinis, $115.83. Buys cosmetics at Lisa's Beauty, $34.29. February 26th, this is during the period of alleged false imprisonment, Janet buys clothing at Pacific Sunwear, $26.80. Buys socks, bras, and underwear at the Jockey Store, $454.64. Buys shirts and boxers at Banana Republic, $416.18. She goes to the Gap and buys clothing, $64.32. Goes to the Levi's outlet, spends $436.77. Goes to Abercrombie & Fitch, spends $74.69. Robinson's May for juniors' clothes, $88.06. Robinson's May again for bras and shorts, $160.58. Foot Locker for shoes for Star, spends $91.44. The next day, February 27th, another day of false imprisonment by grand conspirator Michael Jackson. Robinson's May Cosmetics and Daywear treatment, $129.36. Cosmetics, facial soap, and lotion for Janet, $30.85. Slippers, $28.12. Another $63, all billed in Michael Jackson. She goes to Rite Aid again, all while being falsely imprisoned, and spends $62.09. Goes to Anchor Blue and spends $92.01. Gavin gets a haircut the next day at Song's Barbershop for $20, where she also gets a mani-pedi for $51. March 3rd, Anchor Blue, more clothing for Janet, $29.23. Robinson's May Cosmetics for Janet, $71.86. And lastly, March 10th, Lovely Nails, a mani-pedi for Janet, $115. And all of this totals $3,312.05 for Janet Arvizo while she was falsely imprisoned at luxury hotels and Neverland. Every penny billed to Michael Jackson. And you know what? This bitch is the reason why Michael probably went bankrupt.
I declare bankruptcy!
And there's a lot of significance to the dates of all of these purchases, especially the dates that fall on the time period that the prosecution claims that they were being held hostage. Dates, mind you, like a lot of the dates that the prosecution had changed to fit their agenda, and I will get into that, and there is proof of that. But anyway, the significance is she's out in public. Most of these places she went to by herself, with no security, nothing. She wasn't being imprisoned. Okay? She went to these places out in the public, and if she was being falsely imprisoned, if she was so in fear for her kids' lives, for her life, for the well-being of her family, there were countless people that she could have told while she was out shopping, getting her nails done. Her fucking boyfriend was in the military, who she made phone calls to during these visits, during these day trips to go spend Michael Jackson's money. Never told him, hey, by the way, my kids are being held hostage at Neverland. Maybe call in the National Guard. Maybe call SWAT teams. Get somebody down here. No, didn't do any of that. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So Tom Sneddon said that the Bashir documentary kickstarted Michael Jackson's bizarre and criminal behavior, as well as the frantic behavior of those in his camp. And Sneddon goes on to say that in tandem with the frantic reactions, that the media was everywhere after the Bashir interview premiered in the UK on February 3rd. The Department of Children and Family Services were investigating what happened, and Mesereau goes on to prove that the district attorney's office, Tom Sneddon, was investigating what went on in the documentary as well, and Michael knew about all of it. And everything starts to gain momentum in January and February of 2003, okay? The media is everywhere. The DA's office is looking into what all of this means. The Department of Children and Family Services was looking into everything. Everyone in Michael's camp was concerned and allegedly panicking. Now, there was obviously panic and concern, but not solely over the Bashir documentary, but over what their response was going to be to the documentary. Several networks at this time were swarming Neverland, and they were starting negotiations to have a responsive show to the Bashir documentary, which ultimately happened. And those networks converged on Neverland and on Michael and his people and his advisors to try to do something to respond to Bashir. And it's in the middle of all this craziness. It's in the middle of all this media frenzy. It's in the middle of major networks descending on Michael Jackson and on Neverland. It's during this time that the prosecution claims that Michael decided to molest Gavin Arvizos.
Are you out of your goddamn mind?
It's during this time. And mind you, their dates of child molestations changed. Their dates changed to coincide with their story. Gavin changed his testimony, Tom Sneddon changed the indictment, everything changed. I will get into that. But can you imagine a more ridiculous time to start molesting a child? Because it's absolutely true. The media was everywhere after the Bashir documentary aired. They were following the Arvizos home. They were trying to get interviews. They were camped outside their home. And the Arvizos were even asking for money from the media to do these interviews. Just like they wanted money to do the production with Michael. And I'll get into that too. Like right now. Witnesses testified to seeing Janet on the phone with lawyers, trying to figure out how to get distribution rights after seeing her son Gavin and her kids in the Bashir documentary, and how to get distribution rights for the forthcoming rebuttal tape. And Jay Jackson wanted millions of dollars. He was quoted saying, "Michael can buy us a house. Michael can pay for college. Michael can pay for benefits. That's not enough. We want more." And there's the quote for you right there. And it's straight from the transcripts. And when they weren't going to get money, that's when the molestations allegations began to form. When they realized the money ride was over and they weren't going to be taken care of by Michael forever, all of a sudden, these molestation allegations started to rear its ugly head. So the Arvizos, while forming their molestation allegations, they never went to the police. They went to lawyers. Lawyer after lawyer after lawyer. They worked out all of their legal rights and opportunities. Okay? That's important to know. So he talks about Martin Bashir. Tom Mesereau talks about Martin Bashir in the opening statement, and how Martin lied to Michael to gain his trust and to sway him into doing the interview. But I'll get more into the details of Martin Bashir later on in the podcast. Michael makes it very clear in the documentary that he does not do anything sexual with children. Gavin appears in this documentary, and let's be real. Janet Arvizos wanted her kids to be actors. Remember, she put them in acting schools, had them studying improv at the Laugh Factory. For fuck's sake, David, her ex-husband, even said that Janet put them in acting classes to help her with her fraud. She wanted her kids to be stars. Mesereau even brought in witnesses to speak to that during the trial. And the kids wanted to be actors too. Michael even let Starr film his own make-believe TV show titled The Neverland Channel. Michael was trying to help them break in, and he did help them with the Bashir thing. He let them be involved. And Janet knew exactly what was happening when the documentary was shooting, and when Gavin was in front of the camera, she didn't have a problem with it until she realized she wasn't going to get any money from it. And when Janet shot the rebuttal video, she wised up. After not getting any money from the Bashir taping, she delayed the taping of the rebuttal video until she got on the phone with lawyers and figured out how to get distribution rights for the rebuttal piece. Witnesses testified to that as well during the trial. And the Arvizos made numerous statements to obtain money. And the statements are practically endless, and every single one is proven in court. Like Davelin confiding in a family friend that Michael was going to buy them all a home in the Hollywood Hills. Like Jay Jackson telling a reporter he could take their pictures and do an interview in a magazine, but he had to pay them $15,000 first. Oh, and nothing said in nothing said in the Bashir tape was meant to be private. Michael knew it was meant for worldwide distribution. Gavin even says that on one occasion he slept in Michael's bed while Michael slept on the floor. Nowhere in the tape does Gavin say, "I had sex with Michael Jackson." And in the months following, in fact, Gavin is on record saying, "Michael saved his family. He saved me from cancer. He didn't do anything wrong," quote unquote. Now, Janet's spin is the reason why, everybody's saying all these nice things about Michael is because they were being falsely imprisoned, which we know isn't true. And Tom Sneddon talked about the videotape interview of the family, their rebuttal tape, saying that everything they said was scripted. And that's not true. Like Tom Mesereau says in his opening statement, watch their facial expressions, their spontaneous answers, and how lengthy those answers are and their demeanor. At one point, Janet doesn't even think she's on tape, and she goes on and on about Michael.
Wait, you know how Bashir zoomed in on him holding hands? Do that the same thing.
Because
because that's what a mother does with a son, or a father does with a son, and they try to make it out to be something wrong and dirty. Put your back straight.
The hand holding thing.
Okay.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, we're on camera?
Yeah.
Oh.
We are?
Yeah, I was just rolling.
Oh, God! This is the outtakes of the out.
And yes, the basis of the film was to show the good side of Michael. Yes, there was a sheet of questions so that everybody knew the kinds of questions that would be asked, but that's not special to just that interview. All interviews do that. I work in the industry. I know how this works. Yes, there are question sheets. Not answer sheets, question sheets, so that everybody can be familiar with what's going to be asked so there are no surprises. Davelin even cries as she praises Michael for what he did for her brother, saving him from cancer and this and that, what have you, and I have the tape and I'll show it to you.
My first impression was that he's a very loving, caring, humble man. He took us under his wing when nobody else would. He didn't turn us away like all the people were doing. And he gave my brother the extra little spark he needed in his mind, because my brother was to the point where he couldn't even move. He couldn't even talk. And he gave my little brother so much.
Janet calls him a surrogate father.
And Gavin was the one that asked him, "Could I call you Daddy?" And Michael said, "Of course." And so, through him, it sparked Star and Davelin calling him Daddy Michael. Very innocent and beautiful relationship, which everyone has spun it out of control. It's a wish come true. For example, to see my children interact with an ideal role, a father role model. He plays with them, laughs with them. He lets them win.
He wrestles with them.
He makes jokes with them.
Go on the rides together.
He shows them.
Watch movies together.
He shows them the basic foundation of what life is, and that's a loving family.
So the day after the Bashir tape aired, American media swarmed the Arvizos, tracked them down immediately. Like I said, they were camped outside their home. And that was the day Jay Jackson, her boyfriend, demanded $15,000 for a tabloid interview, which he denied under oath he said, but it's proven in court that he did in fact say it. And 3 days later, on February 6, 2003, the documentary airs in the United States. And the DA's office begins their investigation into Michael, and according to prosecutors, this is when Michael decides to molest Gavin, when literally all eyes are on him and the family, when he knows that the DA's office is investigating him for what was happening in the Bashir documentary, when he knows that all these major networks are storming his house. This is when he decides to fiddle Gavin's diddle. Really? Can we use some common sense here? And like I said, when prosecutors initially charged Michael Jackson, they said the molestation began in early February. Later on, they learned that during the DCFS interviews that the family had after the Bashir tape aired on February 3rd, the family all said that Michael did nothing but help them, never hurt them, never did anything wrong. They later on in the video, the family filmed, they later filmed their own rebuttal video to the Bashir video, where they also praised Michael and said nothing bad was ever done to them. Okay, and guess what? The indictment against Michael was all of a sudden returned, with the dates of molestation changed to having started after those statements were made. So on or before February 20th. And that is proven in court, that they went and they changed the dates. Then Gavin changed his story too, saying that Michael never touched him until after the rebuttal video, when he was super dollars to donuts sure that it had happened early February. Completely contradicting their story that they lied for Michael because they had a gun to their head and were intimidated by his people to make Michael look good. Their stories contradict each other. And on February 8th, 2003, Ed Bradley from the 60 Minutes show shows up to Neverland with the film crew. Also present were Jack Sussman, the president of CBS Entertainment, attorneys David LeGrand and Mark Garagos, and as mentioned before, various networks were competing to do what would later be known as the rebuttal video with Maury Povich. There was a lot of activity going on in Neverland and among people associated with Michael because the production of a rebuttal piece had the potential to make millions of dollars. And everyone wanted to make money off of Michael somehow. And I said it before, Michael was a blank check to people. So everybody was excited. Everybody was coming to Neverland all of a sudden. So that's all day one. Everything day one of Tom Mesereau's opening statement. And just like I said, to put it into perspective of how lengthy these opening statements are, it's unheard of how long these opening statements are. Tom Sneddon's opening statement is 121 pages of transcript. Transcript pages are different from regular book pages. Okay, they're a little shorter. But still, it's very long. And Tom Mesereau's statement goes on for 2 days. Well, a day and a half. So everything I'm going to say now is from day 2 of the opening statements that I'll be pulling from, just so that we all know when you go to the website to look through the opening statements, so you know where we're at. In regards to the prosecutor's claim that Gavin was drinking alcohol on a plane flight that they mentioned earlier, remember when they said Michael was drinking wine out of a soda can and then he licked Gavin's forehead?
What?
Okay, a gang of people were present on this plane. Prince in Paris, Michael's physician, multiple security personnel, a few other private guests, and the Arvizo family. So the Arvizos make up 5 people already. His physician, security personnel, like 2 or 3, not including flight attendants and plane employees. Plane employees. And his physician, Michael's physician, testified during this trial that he was awake during the entirety of the flight, obviously to make sure Michael was okay, and never witnessed this so-called licking that the prosecutor described. Okay, and on this plane flight, Michael, Tom Sneddon talked in his opening statement that there was whispering going on between Michael and Gavin. Some conspiracy.
Conference.
This was unexpected.
And then Michael gave Gavin a watch off of his wrist. And then there was more whispering, some more conspiracy.
I'm thrown right now as to who's gonna be our comrade.
I can still hear you.
He doesn't have the heart nor the gumption.
And then Michael gave Gavin his jacket. And Tom Snedden's spin on this is Michael was telling Gavin to keep the secret of the wine, and the watch and the jacket were bribes to keep Gavin quiet. But Michael has a history of giving shit to people to show that he cares about them.
And you were very friendly with Michael Jackson.
Yes, man. Michael was the greatest entertainer ever and the biggest entertainer in the world, but he was the nicest guy in the world, man. He was just nice, man. I would go to Neverland and I would say I like something, he would give it to me. And I said, Michael, I like that big screen TV. He was like, you like it, Chris? I said, yeah, I like it. He said, do you love it? I said, I love it. Next day I go home, Michael would send the TV to my house. I said, Michael, thank you.
Wow.
But I was like, Michael is nice and rich.
And he writes about it in his autobiography from the late 80s. In his autobiography, he writes about how when he was in school, he loved his teachers so much and he wanted to show that he appreciated them. So he would steal his mother's jewelry and give it to his teachers as gifts. And inevitably his mom would find out, and then she'd get her jewelry back and tell Michael not to do that anymore. So it's not unheard of that Michael would give something as personal as a watch or a jacket to Gavin, who is also dying of cancer, who has cancer, and Michael feels bad. So it wasn't, some big conspiracy. You know what I mean? So Tom Mesereau goes on, and he says that the charges in the case that involve alcohol, Michael giving alcohol to minors, and not in a manner of a bartender giving underage kids alcohol, but that Michael gave alcohol to the kids for the sole purpose of molesting them. Now, the alcohol charge is directly tied to the molestation charge. Neither one exists yet without the other. And Michael flat out denies giving any kids alcohol. And several witnesses come forward for the defense from Michael's side, employees at Neverland that have witnessed the Arvizo kids acting out of control on the Neverland property as their visits became more frequent. They broke into the wine cellar. They were busted drinking alcohol by themselves without Michael being present or even knowing about it. They were caught breaking into the fridge and taking alcohol out of it and grabbing alcohol from a cupboard. Michael ordered alcohol for himself and a few adult guests, and the children stole the bottles and were told to give them back. Witnesses testify to all of this. And the kids even rubbernecked over people to get the security codes to the doors, because we all know that Michael had multiple security keypads on the doors at Neverland. And the kids were able to look over their shoulders and get these codes. And they were caught roaming around the property when Michael wasn't even there. Because remember, Michael has a life. Michael has a career. And while he loves these kids and wants to be there for them, Michael's a workaholic. He cannot just take all this time off to be with the kids. He was there only for a proven 4 days. 4 days. And that's it. And yes, Tom Mesereau goes more into the porn or the girly magazines, because it wasn't allowed to be called porn during the trial. It just wasn't. It was supposed to be called girly magazines or adult materials, things like that, what have you. And yeah, Michael had girly magazines. He had porn. I'm going to call it porn. I'm not in court. So he would send somebody to the store to pick up the magazines for him to pick up the porn. And it would be Hustler or Barely Legal. All of this is absolutely legal porn to possess. This is porn that is sold in the store that any average Joe or Jane could go in and pick up.
Not illegal. Not illegal. Not illegal. Okay. Legal. Illegal.
Fasten your seat.
Legal.
Okay, and I'll remind y'all again, for the people in the back, porn ain't illegal. And like I said before, we can stop at the whole Michael's gay thing now. He had all this straight porn. They didn't find any gay porn in this house. None. And he kept the porn in a locked briefcase. Okay, the most of it. Okay, in a briefcase. Probably for traveling purposes. Who knows? So, 70 police officers raided Neverland to search for DNA evidence and any other evidence of child molestation and found nothing.
Nothing!
No evidence of anything. Okay? And Mr. Snedden said, I don't want to call him Mr. Snedden. He doesn't deserve that kind of respect. Snedden. Smeldon.
P, E, to the T, T, Y, I'm petty. Yeah, I'm petty.
Whatever, said that Janet doesn't want any money. She says, I don't want the devil's money. But when she learned of the molestation claims, she didn't go to the police. She went to a lawyer. Another lawyer. When she was concocting all the molestation stuff. And the police officer that Janet was in constant contact with, never mentioning anything about false imprisonment, by the way, told him that something big is happening and I got a lawyer, quote unquote. Janet told a Santa Barbara sheriff's officer in one of her interviews, my kids have till the age of 18 to file civil suits, quote unquote, which is true. They have until the age of 18 under the statute of limitations. Oh, and by the way, this reminds me, I misspoke in my last episode.
Boo! You stink!
When I said that, when I was talking about civil suits versus criminal suits, criminal and civil cases, there is a law now, because I was talking about why Janet did a criminal suit before they did a civil suit. I said it was because they wanted, they just really, really wanted to bury the hatchet into Michael, and they really wanted the money. Turns out there's a law that was passed shortly after the 1993 scandal saying that if you want to do a civil suit, you have to do a criminal suit first and you have to win it. So they didn't have a choice, the Arvizos. They had to do a criminal suit before they could do a civil one. So that's that. Before I forgot. So anyway, moving back to the opening statement for Tom Mesereau is using all of Janet's statements about the money that she wants, or that the kids have until 18 to file civil suits, which is directly involving money. He's using this to prove that she's using the criminal trial to win a civil suit. Okay? So we're going to move back to the dates that the prosecution claims Michael molested Gavin. And like I said, some of them Michael was out of town, nowhere near Neverland. There were only 4 approximate dates that were proven where he was present, and the rest he was never near the place. And in regards to the conspiracy claims, Michael's co-conspirators, like I said, Mark Schaffel, Dieter Weissner, Ron Knitzer, Frank Cassio, and Vincent Amen, none were charged or indicted, only Michael Jackson, which proves Snedden's hard-on for Michael. But like I said, I'll get to that. Michael didn't like the business side of the industry. We're going back to the opening statement now. Tom Mesereau says Michael didn't like the business side of the industry. He said it took away from his creative processes the more time he spent around business people and court documents and contracts, which is true. There's even a letter that was released to the public that he had written to Lisa Marie saying, I need to get away from these people. I need to get away from business people. Michael didn't like being around soul-sucking business people. He just didn't. And witnesses testified to Michael signing things without reading them. And we all know that he got himself into some trouble for signing things that he didn't know he was signing. There's even a deposition where he's being interviewed for something very similar. Now, Dieter and Knitzer came into Michael's life claiming to protect him from charlatans and would-be do-gooders. Okay? Michael didn't know the ins and outs of what Dieter and Knitzer were doing with his affairs. They essentially took over all the day-to-day things for Michael, making decisions on his behalf, because Michael gave them power of attorney.
Allow me to introduce to you my German-Canadian partners. Dieter Weissner from Germany, Ronald Knitzer from Canada, and myself have entered into an agreement, an exclusive long-term partnership. We will operate through a number of companies that we will mutually own. I have agreed to a strategic plan for the next 10 years. that will encompass many high-caliber entertainment projects, but also philanthropic activities. I would like you to understand that Mr. Weisner and Mr. Knitzer are overseeing all my business matters, and there is nobody else involved on this level. We meet on frequent basis, discuss our business affairs, and decide together. Mr. Weisner and Mr. Knitzer therefore have my full approval to negotiate on my behalf and on behalf of mutually owned companies. Depending on my schedule, I will personally sign agreements or legally authorize my partners to sign on my behalf.
And there's a quote from either Dieter or Knitzer saying, his intention was definitely not being bothered with signatures here and there every other day and with personal meetings with each and every member of the team. We realize that some might feel insulted, but it's not personal. Signatures and meetings with Michael will in general not happen. Only in very special cases, exceptions will be made, quote unquote. They made an effort to keep Michael away from a lot of what they were trying to do on his behalf and to control his affairs, primarily his music business. And they even convinced Michael to fire David Legrand, his attorney at the time, because Legrand knew something was a little odd about Dieter and Knitzer, taking money out of Michael's account and signing documents. He just wasn't sure about it. And Janet didn't like the Germans, as she referred to them. She's referring to Dieter and Knitzer, who were German, because they were going to be profiting off of the rebuttal tape and trying to keep her out of the funds, and she knew it. She saw them as people who were trying to keep her away from Michael, the daddy figure of her family, the one who rescued her and her kids from all their troubles. She felt duped by the alleged co-conspirators because she knew she wasn't going to get money from any kind of production. And that's when she went to see a lawyer named William Dickerman. And she starts sending letters to Mark Garagos, Michael's attorney. The letters stated they wanted Janet's furniture back. Now, Michael had Janet's old, nasty furniture from the East LA apartment put in storage when she said she didn't want to live there anymore.
That's it. I've had it with this dump!
Because he believed, like I said, he believed that she lived there. Okay? So he was helping her put her shit in storage. And so the prosecution is insinuating that Michael wanted to steal her nasty-ass furniture.
But that's not true either, is it? Is it?
No.
So in all of the letters sent to Garagos about Janet's furniture, not once do they mention child molestation. Not once do they mention false imprisonment. Not once do they mention conspiracy. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And in April of 2003, Janet goes to see Larry Feldman, who helped represent Evan Chandler in 1993.
Son of a bitch!
Larry gets Janet and the kids to talk to Stan Katz, a psychologist who also played a small role in 1993. Now, his role didn't end up coming to fruition because the case didn't go to trial. Larry Feldman, who, like I said, was Evan Chandler's attorney, was going to call Stan Katz as an expert witness to the psychology of Michael Jackson. And Stan Katz used to say all kinds of ridiculous things about Michael, saying, oh yeah, Michael's just really a 10-year-old. He, at heart and in his mind, he's got a 10-year-old mentality. He's not in it for sex, but when he does hang out with little boys, he is gonna jack off with them and drink wine and do all the things that stupid little boys do. And I was like, can you shut up? Can you, why? Get out. So it's not until May 29th that the psychologist, Stan Katz, claims that there is reasonable suspicion for child molestation. And Larry was hired in April. But the molestation claims didn't come out until the end of May. Okay? And on June 5th, 2003, Stan Katz, Larry Feldman, and William Dickerman meet and collaborate. No one goes to police. Janet doesn't go to the police. The kids don't go. And then on June 13th, 2003, Stan and Larry go to the DCFS to report child molestation. And also, Lieutenant Klapagus from the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office calls the DCFS on September 30th and tells them not to interview the Arvizo kids. They don't want them to interview the kids because they already had, which is shady shit.
Fuck this guy!
So they didn't want the children to be interviewed by the DCFS. But what's concerning to me, and should be concerning to everybody watching this case, was why wouldn't you want the kids to be interviewed by the DCFS, because a DCFS interview for a case like this, for a case involving, based upon child molestation, a DCFS interview would have been the most important interview to discuss during the trial and to refer back to. That's why they have the DCFS, specifically for things like this. And then now all of a sudden, you've got the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department saying, no, it's cool, like we already interviewed them, it's fine. And the only reason that I can think of for them not wanting the DCFS to interview those kids, and I don't know if you can come up with another reason, let me know, but the only reason I feel is because they knew, the Sheriff's Department knew, the prosecution team knew, Tom Sneddon knew, everybody knew, the Arvizos knew, that if they were interviewed by the DCFS again, that they were going to rip their asses apart. Because the DCFS already has them on record saying that nothing ever happened. And then now all of a sudden something did happen. DCFS would have ruined this family's chance of any kind of trial. This probably would have started a mistrial. And the prosecution knows that. Tom Sneddon knows that. So they were like, no, it's cool. We got it. We took care of it. It's all good. Thanks for coming out, though.
Super. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
So do you see what I'm saying as far as, and not even just what I'm saying, but what Tom Mesereau is saying in his whole opening statement, that all of this shit just doesn't make any sense.
That just makes no fucking sense. I mean, it's just bullshit. Fuck. Oh my.
So that is the condensed version of both Tom Sneddon's and Tom Mesereau's opening statements for the trial. And like I said, in my opinion, Tom Mesereau won this case just in his opening statement. He has already, without really having to prove anything, has proven that the Arvizos are not to be trusted. They're extortionists. They are conspirators. And he just immediately, all of the garbage that Tom Sneddon said in his opening statement. And yes, before you guys come at me, if somebody's watching this who isn't necessarily a Michael fan and you're watching this just to get, the ins and outs of the information, and if that's the case, then thanks for actually listening to the information. But no, this isn't a one-sided thing for me. I wasn't always a Michael Jackson fan, and I'm going to do a whole video explaining that, because I feel like everybody has the moment where they realize they were a fan. But I wasn't always a Michael fan. I was growing up during this trial, and I heard things, I said things, ignorant ass things that I had no business saying because I had no idea who Michael Jackson was and what was going on during this trial. It wasn't until I got a little bit older when I was like, okay, something's not right here. And I was still young. I was in my early teens. And I was in my early teens not knowing who Michael Jackson was. And I still knew that this just isn't right. So sometimes common sense has to override your personal feelings and however you feel about something. But anyway, I digress. This is going to be part 1 of a 2-part series for the Vindication Day special, because this video will go on and on and on and on if I just talk about this at length in this one video. So that's this video just about the opening statements, and of course my commentary, because I can't stay quiet about these kinds of things. Y'all know me, I'm sassy.
Fat and sassy.
So be on the lookout for part 2. And part 2 is where I'm diving in. You thought I dived in today or dove in? Is dived a word? I dove in today. Y'all thought, no. It gets better. There are things that can't be said in this video, can only be said in the next video. The truth will come out. The truth will be known, as it's pretty much always been known. Michael Jackson is innocent, always has been, always will be. So thank you guys very much for tuning in to this very special episode of the MJ Theory, the Vindication Day special, which is now going to be a 2-parter. So that's exciting.
I'm so excited!
So if you want to stay up to date with me and you want to stay involved and interact with me and comment and all this and that and what have you, go ahead and subscribe and make sure that you hit the notification bell so that you know when I post. And, you know, we can talk and we can, you know, just have a good time. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I will see y'all in part 2.